Hey everyone, it's Monday and time for Monday Mastery live at 5 or live at 6. Anyway, I'm going to have to change my mindset here. It's 6 o'clock and time for another edition of Monday Mastery. It's Monday, January 10th, and it's a new year, a new month, and hopefully a new you this year. Set some new simple resolutions that aren't too complicated, or you don't have too many New Year's resolutions. We'll wait for a couple of people. Here we go. We're starting to jump on here. It's another travel day for me. I'm scrambling to get things put together. I hope you can hear me. I've got my mic off to the side today. Get that adjusted a little better. Forgot my mouse, and so it's a little bit of craziness, and I've got halfway between Texas and Michigan. So next, I'm not sure where I'll be next Monday. My intention is to be back on the road by the weekend, but I've got some business to take care of up there. So it's another quick trip to Michigan, where it was 20 below zero today and a wind chill of minus 39. So that was pretty interesting. Glad I'm not there right now. So, hey Jill, thanks for joining in. Glad you're here. One of the things, the primary topic I wanted to talk about is how soon do you start dating after a divorce, or after being widowed, or even after the breakup of a relationship. The reason this is an important topic is because so many times people just rush from one relationship to the next, and to the next, and to the next. And we don't take a lot of time, and I'm guilty of this. When we end a marriage, when we lose a spouse, and losing a spouse is a little different than getting a divorce or just breaking up with somebody. Generally, I found that it takes much longer to recover from the loss of a spouse, as opposed to divorce or breaking up a long-term relationship. And as a rule of thumb, and you can share your comments or your thoughts, whether you agree or disagree. But my experience, both as a dating and relationship coach, plus my years as a financial advisor, I find that and especially for the ladies, there seems to be about a 5-year period that it takes to recover and to be just mentally and emotionally ready to date again, even maybe even financially. Hey Jacqueline, thanks for joining in. And here, yeah, awesome. That's perfect timing. So Jacqueline says she just came on Facebook and I popped up. Well, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It might be a little scary, especially with my travel attire. I didn't even have time. I scrambled to get to the motel. Just didn't have time to shave. Didn't have time to change out of my travel sweatshirt, trying to stay warm today. And so anyway. So it's been a good trip. Now back to dating. Again, my experience just shows that it takes about 5 years to recover from the loss of a spouse, and sometimes, and most times, guys try to push it. We've talked not too long ago, a couple of months ago, about a couple of gentlemen that I talked to, or a gentleman that reached out to me and said that he wasn't waiting. And I mean, he was just diving back into to search for a new spouse, or a new companion. And what he doesn't realize is he will do a lot of damage to the women he dates, because they're expecting to have a healthy or emotionally healthy gentleman that they're dating, and they'll find out the hard way that he's still grieving the loss, whether he realizes it or not. He'll drive a lot of women away. Hey, Geneva, thanks for joining in. Glad you're here. Oh, thank you, Jacqueline. And Geneva says, we love you as you are. Oh, you look great, Rick. Thank you. I just noticed the reader hair, I guess, is what I've got tonight. I see a little lump up there. Anyway, but it's what we got. It's what I've got to work with. So anyway, so it just takes time, and as a general rule of thumb, for those of us that have been divorced or have gotten divorced, or have dated somebody for a significant period of time, I use a general rule of thumb of a minimum of a year. But generally, a better rule of thumb is anywhere from roughly about 1 month for every year you were married. And I know from personal experience, it took me about 13 months to really start coming back to being myself, gaining my sense of humor, gaining confidence in dating again. But it took another several years after that. I was with my ex for 25 years, and so that it was a minimum of 2.5 years. But I know for me personally, because I had to bury so many aspects of my personality to maintain my marriage, it took me quite a while. It took me time to peel back the layers that I had buried, or peel away down to the layers that I had buried away. And and that it's true for all of us. Some of us heal and recover much more quickly than others, but as a general rule, when you end a relationship, you got to give yourself at least a month for every year you were together. If you were together for even just a year, you got to take a good 2, 3, 4 months, because you started to develop a relationship. You started to develop connections, and those connections are not easily broken. They just don't disappear overnight. It's not like you can just wish somebody away. Now, granted, you may move a little more quickly if you had a toxic relationship. You might be free, but you still got to heal from the grief and the toxicity of that relationship. Hey, Randy, thanks for joining in. Randy says, get rid of soul connection. And Randy, share what you mean by that. Are you saying that you don't believe in soulmates, or that you don't think you can have an extraordinary connection with someone? Is that what you're saying there? So give me a heads up there. Jill says, let me pop hers up here real quick. It's been 7 years for me. It's been a good thing. Mentally and emotionally ready now. See, that's awesome, Jill. I'm excited for you because you've taken time. And I'm not telling any of you that you shouldn't be dating or can't be dating. Just I wouldn't get serious about it. And that's easier said than done, because you find somebody that you seem to connect with, and there may be a few rare exceptions where you haven't had your full amount of time to heal and to recover from your last relationship or from the death of a spouse, and you do stumble across somebody. But odds are, that doesn't happen, because more often than not, you're looking for a replacement. You're looking for a placeholder, or somebody to fill a void or a vacancy in your life. And that's never a reason to date or to get into a relationship. Um, one of the greatest accomplishments you can, in my opinion, that you can reach in being a single is you. What am I trying to say? You get to a point where you're comfortable with your own company. You're comfortable in your own skin. Um, let's see. And when you get to that point, you are in a in a power position when it comes to dating. It's you're in control of your emotions and your feelings, so you're not as liable to end up in a toxic or even just a poor relationship, because you know what you're willing to accept and what you aren't. And when you get to that point where you're comfortable in your own skin and with your own company, then you're at a point where you can be selective, and it doesn't make any difference to you. You'll be just as happy with someone as without, and that's an awesomely powerful place to be. Randy says, no, when in a relationship, you have a special connection. It takes time to get over that. That's absolutely right. That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm glad you picked up on that, Randy. Because it does take time when you have, and even if it's not a soulmate connection, even if it's just a good relationship, it still takes time, because you have developed certain connections, and there's a lot of chemistry that goes on there. There's a lot of hormones. I refer to them as raging hormones, because we all have these hormones, that the oxytocin, the dopamine, the serotonin, and there's a couple of others in there that cause us to connect and feel love, or feel how do you describe it? You just have that connection with somebody. You want to be with them. You desire, and you can have these connections, these hormonal connections, even if the relationship is not good. That's why we see so many people that's why we see so many people in toxic relationships that have such a hard time letting go of somebody that's abusive to them. It's these hormones and they literally fire up the same little spot in the brain that are triggered by drugs or alcohol. When you're an addict or an alcoholic, there's a certain spot in the brain that lights up when you get that next drink. Same thing happens with the oxytocin, the dopamine, the serotonin. It triggers that part of the brain, and we start developing for lack of better terms, an addiction to somebody. And hopefully, in more cases than not, we're developing a healthy connection. But not everyone gets there. At least not right away. Sheila says, I found out that guys think it's weird that I've been single for 4 years since my divorce. They think I'm not serious about wanting to get into a relationship. Well, you haven't talked to me, Sheila. I know how serious you are about finding an extraordinary guy. But Sheila, I'm proud of you for not going out and throwing yourself into the newest next relationship. It takes time, and I know how serious you are about it, and you should be proud of yourself for holding out. And any guy that thinks that you're not serious about or thinks that you're weird for holding out for all the things that you want in a relationship, those are the guys that you don't need to be around anyway. They don't get it. They're the ones that are jumping from one relationship to the next. And I'll bet if you ask them and probe a little bit, they have been out of their last relationship for less than 6 months. And odds are it's probably 3 months or less. Just a guess. Just a guess. So, just you keep doing what you're doing, Sheila, and you will eventually find the right guy. And odds are that he will have been divorced nearly as long or maybe longer than you. And so don't worry about what anybody else says. They, if that if you're dating, if you're coming across guys that think it's weird that you've been divorced that long, just ignore them. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Jill says, wouldn't worry over anyone's opinions. Absolutely. And that's, I'm assuming, Jill, you're referring to Sheila. Absolutely. Don't worry about anything that anybody else says. And even me. Take my advice and use what you can and disregard the rest. I have very, very defined opinions about dating and relationships, and a lot of what I talk about works for a lot of people. But what I share and what I teach doesn't work for everyone. So you take what works for you and then and disregard the rest. Hopefully you'll listen to what I say and avoid the jumping from relationship to relationship. But if not, okay, that's fine too. Whatever. But I think what you'll find is that if you follow along with the things that I try to share with you, that you will avoid a lot of the heartache, a lot of the pain, and a lot of the toxicity in relationships out there today, just by avoiding or just by recognizing what you want and what you don't want, and keeping your boundaries. Hey, Phil, thanks for joining in. I'm glad to see you're here. Phil is watching in Olathe, Kansas, and I'm in Lake Ozark, Missouri tonight. So Sheila says, "Thank you, Rick. You've helped me so much." Aw, thank you. And I'm glad, Sheila. And you and I have talked several times, and I see you at my meetup from time to time, or at my meetup group from time to time, and you're always such a sweetheart to talk to. So so going back to when should you start dating? Hey, Terry, thanks for joining in. Glad you made it. When it, and again, I have general rules of thumb. If you're widowed, my experience is that it takes about 5 years to get through that. The first year is just a fog. And then, you come out of that fog, you spend a year just trying to figure out how to survive from day to day. And then you start coming out of that, and you start trying to figure out who you are. And, because now you're single and by no choice of your own. Still dealing with a little sinus stuff from the flu between Christmas and New Year's. So sorry about that. Maybe I'll dive under the table next time. Anyway, hey, Nancy, thanks for joining in. So and we all process things differently, and some of us move a little faster, and some of us move a little less quickly. So, you have to judge where you're at and what's right for you, what's comfortable for you. I've talked to women that after 3.5, 4 years, they're really serious about looking for a new mate. I've talked to others that have been divorced or widowed for many, many years. Terry says, Terry, let me just put this up. I'm minus my mouse, so I'm using my mouse pad. Terry says, widowed 7 years. It takes time for me. I'm enjoying what I have in life right now. And Terry, that's an awesome place to be. just enjoying life. And that puts you in the driver's seat, so to speak, when it comes to dating. Whether you're actually ready to start dating now, or you want to wait another couple of years or another 7 years, whatever it is. You'll know. We all instinctively know when we're ready. Now, what I will say, or I'll qualify that. When we get divorced, especially when we get divorced, we think we're ready. I was separated for 3 years before my divorce, and I've talked to so many people that were separated 2, 3, 4, 5 years before their divorce was final. And they think, oh yeah, all my emotional baggage is behind. Nah, you may have released some of the emotional stuff, but there's a whole bucket of stuff that you're going to have to work through that you really can't start working through until the ink is dry on the divorce decree. So there's just things that you have to go through, and we all go through it. There's again, the best analogy that I have is peeling back the layers of who you are, finding your sense of humor again, finding out what makes you laugh, finding out what makes you happy, what are the things that you want to do. We all had plans with our exes or our late spouses, and now we're single. How do those plans change? How does your future retirement look? What differences are you looking at there? When you bring somebody new into your life, you're going to have somebody new to be accountable to, and it's for lack of better terms, your goals and your dreams may all change. What you had planned with your spouse are now may no longer apply. So there's just any number of things that you have to work through. What does retirement look like for you now? It's are you going to continue to work rather than retire at 55 or 60 or 65? Oh, sorry about this. Forgot to shut my phone off. How does that change? Maybe your spouse passed away and left you financially solid and you can retire earlier, or maybe they didn't and you have to work longer. Those are things that you all have to work through, that we all have to work through, even if you get divorced. You might come through a nasty, financially nasty divorce, and it leaves you, for lack of better terms, destitute or broke, and you have to start all over again. It happens to all of us. So these are some of the things you have to work through, and that takes time. It takes time to get back on your feet. And it doesn't make any difference whether you're a man or a woman. You really need to be back on your feet financially before you start dating seriously. There a couple of you might get lucky and find the sugar daddy or a sugar mama, and that are willing to take care of you. But there's something about the personal satisfaction of being financially stable on your own, and it's not easy. It took me years, quite a few years, to get back to that point. So these are all what we don't necessarily always think about, but they're all part of the equation of becoming single again, widowed or divorced, or whether you ended a long-term relationship. There are a lot of different components that we all have to figure out, and some of those are much easier than others, and some of us are much much better at addressing those things and taking them head on. And others of us, we procrastinate and say, I don't know, I'll worry about that tomorrow. And that can be fine too, because there can be some amazing doors that open just by waiting and just watching and letting the dust settle. So anyway, I'm hoping this is informative or helpful for some of you all. I'm getting some good comments in here, but if you have questions like Sheila, just shoot me those questions and we'll answer those online and try to answer them live. And if you don't make if you're watching this as a recording later on, I will do my best to answer your questions when I see them. And that's that's the amazing thing about this. I don't always see them when you post. I kind of got chewed out a couple of weeks ago by somebody that thought that I was ignoring her, and I apologized profusely because I didn't see her comments in the comment section that I have over here on the side. And when I developed the conversation a little bit, discovered she was watching the rerun or the recorded version of it, and it was like, oops, I'm sorry. Yeah, but I answered her questions anyway. So if you ever wonder if you're watching the live version or a recorded version, up in the upper left hand corner of your screen, you'll see a live and a red live banner again, it'll be on the upper left hand corner of your screen. If it's recorded, it won't be there. So anyway, that's really in a nutshell what I have to say today. It's so important to take your time to not jump from one relationship to the next, not be a serial monogamist. A serial monogamist is the person that is in a relationship for a while, and then that relationship ends for whatever reason, and within the month they're in another relationship. They haven't taken time to recover from the last relationship, and odds are, if you're a serial monogamist, you haven't recovered from 2 or 3 relationships prior. So it just takes time. And I had one woman that I was working with several years ago that she would just jump from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And I said, I told her, I said, you've got to stop. You've got to stop dating for a while. Take a year, take 2 years, and just process all the crap that you've been through for the last 4 or 5 years. And it took her one more relationship to figure out that advice was worthwhile, and she took some time away and just got focused on getting her life back together. So let's see. Deborah. Hey, Deborah, thanks for joining in. Deborah says the conversation is validating and appreciated. Awesome. And Deborah, I mentioned, use what you can out of the conversation and disregard the rest. But, sometimes it's just a matter, so many of us know instinctively, but we know instinctively what we need to be doing, but we listen to our friends, we listen to our families and say, oh, you need to go out and you need to be with somebody. But they don't know what you're going through. They don't know the heartache. They don't know, and this is especially true for widows. And guys, this applies to you too. But ladies, you have friends and family that, and maybe even your kids. If you've lost your husband, it's like they want to see you happy again, but they don't know the crap that you have to deal with. and they're pushing you into situations that are way too mature for you. You need to be much further down the road before you start diving in and trying to search out a replacement for your late husband, and guys, for your late wife. You've got to. There's a whole. Here's another thought that just popped into my mind. If you're still wearing a wedding ring, you're not ready. If you haven't gone through his or her closet and emptied that out and done whatever whatever it is, whether you give it to Goodwill or give it to family or friends, you're not ready. If you haven't gone through their crafts or their jewelry or their tools, you're probably not ready. If you haven't gotten rid of his bass boat, unless you're into bass fishing, you're probably not ready. There has to be a time to just clean out. And if you're and I've heard stories from ladies who've dated guys that are widowed, and some guys keep a shrine to their late wife, and that's okay. But there has to come a point in time where you put some of the pictures away. And don't misunderstand me. They were a part of your life for a long period of time, and it's okay. They're a part of your life, and they will always be part of a part of your life. And whoever comes into your life will have to understand that, just like their husband or their wife was a part of their life for a long period of time. But if you have a shrine to them, so to speak, that the entire house is untouched since they passed, you're probably not ready. And let's see, I've got several comments in here. Jill says, after 7 years, it's almost hard to really see yourself dating. Well, Jill, if you find it hard to date, or you find it hard to see yourself dating, you may not be ready. It's there, but there will come a point in time, and don't. There's a fine line between being ready to date and and I don't want to say it this way, and being so comfortable that being single that you just ignore dating. There's. And I think if you dig deep, Jill, you'll find that there is a part of you that will yearn for someone special to share the day with. When you come home from work, who do you share with? There's something powerful. There's something special when you have that special someone in your life. It doesn't always have to be the good. Sharing the good stuff. They're there to bounce ideas off of. They're there to. They're there to be supportive on the rough days. So don't. It's so easy to get comfortable in your daily routines that you neglect dating and you neglect that part of your life. And I've found that having someone special in my life is, at least for me, life is to be shared, or it's life is better when it's shared, at least to me. And now, Jill, from that being said, don't be afraid to find somebody that's comfortable doing the same things that you are. We kind of get in a groove and become set in our ways. There's somebody out there that will be set in ways similar to yours, and it's just kind of like a hand in a glove. And I'm falling behind here. I'm sorry, I got off on a tangent there. And Suzanne, hey, Suzanne, thanks for joining in. What is the more normal time after to date after being widowed? She says, thanks, answered. Yeah, I generally think it's about 5 years. And it'll be plus or minus, Suzanne, depending on what your situation is. Depending on, how long it was, how long you were married. We all process things at a different rate. But you, and only you, will know when it's right. Again, like I said a little bit ago, your friends and family will encourage you to date probably long before you're ready. And, just politely smile and say, yeah, I'm working my way towards it. And let it go with that. You'll know when it's right. You'll know, when you're comfortable being single, when you're comfortable being alone, and you don't need that. You're not trying to fill a void. Then you're in, like I said at the very beginning, you're in a position of power in dating. You're in control. You're not going to ignore your wants and needs and desires to fulfill somebody else's wants, needs, and desires. Hey, Nancy, thanks for joining in. Yeah, that's exactly what I said. Nancy, you nailed that right on. You got it out before I did, so thank you. Hey, Gina, thanks for joining in. And Jill says that's exactly what I do. Good. That's the awesome place to be emotionally, is that you're okay being single and you're okay with someone in your life. And if they can't, if the person if you start dating somebody and they can't enhance your life, if they can't bring something to the table that makes life better for you, then there's not a lot of reason to be there. Because I truly believe that when we're in the right relationship, that relationship enhances us. Again, it's not just a companionship thing. They make us want to be a better person every day. They make us want to take care of them. And guys, this goes for you also. It makes you want to be to be very cliche, the knight in shining armor. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're fighting dragons or fighting their battles or taking taking all the worries of the world off of them. Sometimes, guys, you have to just be there to listen. And ladies, tell me if I'm wrong. I doubt it, but if I'm wrong, let me know. It's just nice to have somebody to share the day with. If you've got problems, you want somebody to talk to, and you want somebody that is there to listen, and not necessarily tell you how to fix it. Because guys, ladies, that's what we do. We fix things, and when we're in that relationship, we automatically go into fix-it mode, and sometimes you just have to say, stop. All I want you to do is listen. And guys, Phil and any other guys that are listening, Randy, make sure that when you're with a woman and you're in a relationship, and she starts going on and on and on about something, just ask, do you want my input or do you want me to listen? And 99 times out of 100, she's going to say, I just want you to listen. And while she's sharing this with you guys, she's figuring out what she needs to do. As she's talking through it, she's figuring out the steps she needs to take. But sometimes, a lot of times, and ladies, again, if I'm wrong, Nancy says exactly. And so, if I'm saying something that you don't agree with, make sure you tell me, and we'll air that out. I'm not sure what this is. I got a YouTube YouTuber on here, and I may have to move that one on. So bear with me for 1 second here. Let's see. We'll just do this. Just block that user. There was a, I don't know how many of you could see it, but there was a foreign person in here, and I wasn't going to get into some sort of foreign conversation or have something foul pop up. So, and that will happen from time to time. We're live, and so we just have to learn to play the game. So we just block them, and they're gone. So anyway, any thoughts or questions that you want me to address? Because we're coming to the last part of the program. Phil says, reflections that make a strong relationship is part of a great marriage with communication to each other. And I'm assuming by reflections you're saying that you reflect each other's day and you reflect upon your life together. Is that what I'm taking away from that, Phil? But if that's the case, I think that's totally right, because you can step back and reflect and say, yeah, we've had a great life, or yeah, wasn't that a lot of fun, or but if I'm wrong, Phil, please let me know. Okay, Phil says yes, that's exactly right. And it's, a lot of times it is fun, you when you've been with somebody for a while, it's fun to look at the memories you've created and the traditions that you've created together. And that's something that you have to look forward to in your next relationship is creating new traditions. You don't necessarily need to keep everything that you've been doing in the past. Because you're with somebody new, you get into a new relationship, you can create new traditions, and it can be just as awesome. It's just going to be different. And Suzanne says, I feel relieved that there is no rush and social push. I need time out for sure. That's awesome that you recognize that, because like I was saying a minute ago, Suzanne, it's so easy for friends and relatives to be pushy and say, yeah, Suzanne, you need to be in a new relationship. You need to be happy. And, look at us. We're so happy as a couple. Yeah, but you're not there yet. You're not there emotionally. And very few people around you, Suzanne, are going to understand that. And just be polite and smile and say, yeah, I'm working on it. And it just takes time to get there. It doesn't happen overnight. We all process things at a different rate. Some of us are able to peel back layers of who we are and what we've buried much more quickly than others. And for those of us that are slower, and I'm one of the slow ones, it takes me time. It took me, even though I've been divorced for over 11 years, I'm still evolving. I'm still becoming, hopefully, a better man every day. One increment at a time, 1% at a time. And if I can do that once a day, I'm 365% better by the end of the year. I don't know that I do it every day, but, hey, Sandy, thanks for joining in. Let's see. The dating world is so hard to find a good person to date. So many fake people. Well, Sandy, there are a lot of problem children out there, as I like to refer to it. But I'm going to take a leap here and just remind you that dating is not about every guy in your situation. It's not about every guy being a great guy. That's what dating is all about, is weeding out the ones that aren't. And if you're crystal clear about what you want, about your must-haves and about your deal breakers, that's going to go a long way to avoiding a lot of the disappointing dates and short-term relationships. Because what you'll find is that when you are true to yourself and true to what you want, you're not going to accept dates with maybe even half the guys that you've dated so far, because with just simple conversations, you can learn enough about somebody to figure out whether they even qualify to be with you. And it doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means they're not the right one for you. And, sadly in our society, we have these goofy things that tell us that, what everybody's doing and what everybody's life looks like, and we're sitting back here looking at it and saying, ooh, yeah, my life is kind of a mess compared to that. They have everything they've got everything going on for them. And that one is not really true. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, how many of us really sat and talked about the meal we're about to have? Who called, we were sitting at the dining room table or the kitchen table getting ready to eat. Who called their best friend and say, oh, you should see this meal I prepared, or that I'm about to eat at this restaurant? Who did that? That's what social media has done to us. It helps portray lives that aren't really real. So, Sandy, yeah, there are some fakes out there. But, again, that's part of the dating process. You should be searching for that needle in a haystack relationship, that 1 in a million or that 1 in 1,000. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have to date 1,000 guys, but what you are going to have to date more than 3 or 4 or 5 guys to find extraordinary. And again, when you're crystal clear about everything that you want and the things that you will absolutely not accept in a relationship, it makes the process a whole lot easier. You'll have a whole lot of one and done dates. And, that sounds cold and maybe uncaring, but the reality is you're looking for someone special, or you should be. And again, you want somebody to enhance your life. You don't want to have somebody slow you down or drag you down emotionally, or bring just you don't want anyone that brings a lot of baggage. It's that. And unfortunately, a lot of people try to impress based on what they think you want. And if you're honest and know what you want, you can just tell them, this is what I'm looking for. Or not tell them, and they'll eventually tell you who they are and what they're all about. And you have to be observant. And Terry says, lots of good people too, but hard to find the one that find that one connection, even when they fill the check marks you're looking for. Oh, Terry, that is such a good point. Just because they meet everything on your must-have list and your deal breaker list doesn't mean that they're the right one. It's a great start, but that doesn't mean they're the right one, because you still have to develop an intellectual connection. You have to develop a spiritual connection. You have to develop an emotional connection. There has to be a physical connection. And I'm not going to get into all the details about those, but those are the 4 cornerstones of extraordinary relationships. And that's the foundation that you build on. All of the must-haves, that kind of helps weed out the people that you don't necessarily want in your life. But you have to be able to have an intellectual conversation. You got to be able to talk about anything and everything. You've got to share morals and values. You've got to be able to whatever your spiritual beliefs, you really, in my opinion, you need to be on the same page, working in the same direction. You may not be in the same place in your spiritual journey, but you're moving in that same direction. A Christian dating an atheist or an agnostic, that's a recipe for a disaster, because you're putting a hurdle in the relationship. You're putting a roadblock there that prevents you from having extraordinary, from being with your soulmate. The emotional connection, like I said, we talk about love being a choice, but there are a lot of hormones that are involved with this. The oxytocin, the dopamine, the serotonin, these all play a huge part. That all has to be there. So there are a lot of moving parts. One of the other things I truly believe is relationships will be much stronger if you speak similar love languages. It just makes communication so much easier. I dated a woman. I actually dated a couple of women that my primary love language is physical touch, and theirs wasn't. And when I'm dating somebody or out on a date, I'm naturally touching hand, putting my hand on hers, or there's physical touch there, and I'm not talking about intimately, but it's just who I am. It's my primary love language, and it's like it's like there's a brick wall between us when her language is not physical touch. The room becomes chillier or colder because of it. So there's so many aspects of a relationship, Sandy. It just takes time to search those things out and find things that find those characteristics that fit your particular wants and needs and desires. Terry says, lots of good. I think we already touched on that one. And Sandy says, I've had a lot of one and done dates. Well, that's and don't be ashamed of that. That's healthy. I mean, it at least it signifies to me that you're paying attention. And if he doesn't make an impression, and maybe you don't make an impression on him, it goes both ways. And this is something that I have to emphasize, that when somebody tells you that they just don't feel a connection with you, don't take it personally. It's not about that's not about you. It's not saying you're a bad person. It's just saying you're not the right one for them, and that's okay. Even if you felt some spark or some level of connection with them, the connection and the feelings have to go both ways. This is not a one-sided event. It has to be that you both feel something, and you both have to be in a position that say, yeah, let's take a look at this and let's explore. But if one of you is less than interested, they're going to be the ones with all the power. They're the ones that are, I guess, for lack of better terms, the ones that are least interested have all the power in the relationship. Because the one that is most interested is going to jump through hoops to make the relationship work. But you have to find that special someone that's going to put in an effort. They have to want to put in as much effort as you do. And when you're with the right person, it's going to be you're both going to give 110% and expect nothing in return. When you get to that, when you have that one, you have the potential for an extraordinary relationship. They're there to enhance your life just as you're there to enhance theirs. So, Sorry, I got off on a tangent there, but that's Sandy. You brought up some very good points. And don't be discouraged by the one and done dates. The more dates you go on, the closer that result in a no brings you one date closer to a yes. And that's an old marketing or a sales adage, but it's the truth. Each time you date somebody and it turns out to be a one and done, that's one less. Oh, Terry, it's practice. Terry, that is an awesome point. And how do you get good at anything? Is you practice. You keep doing it. You keep doing it over and over and learn from each experience. Learn, and we're all going to screw up. I know I have. I've said the wrong thing and done the wrong thing. And, it's inevitable, but learn from it. It's not, at the moment, it can be very uncomfortable. And, it is like, oh man, just stick me with a fork. I'm done, but, it is what it is. It is a learning situation. It is practice. And the better you get, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I had a conversation on Facebook with somebody the other day, or a couple of comments back and forth, that they're just they're not giving up. They're just quitting dating for a while. They're taking a vacation from it, and that's okay too. There comes a point in time where you have a lot of one and dones, or a lot of short term. When I say short term, 1 to 3 month relationships. You date somebody for a couple of months, and then you discover that this isn't quite working. You're going to go through a lot of that, and sometimes that gets discouraging, and sometimes you just have to step back from the whole process and get your head back together and enjoy life, and then get back at it. But it's and Sandy, you're absolutely right. It's in the numbers, and unfortunately, too many people don't recognize that. They think that to find that needle in a haystack, you date 3 or 4 or 5 guys or women, and you should naturally find your soulmate. It's just not going to happen that quick. At least from my experience. And Terry says, I take time off a lot of times. Absolutely. And that's a healthy thing. Step back from it, reevaluate, and you might even look at the guys that you've been dating and saying, all these guys have these similar characteristics. Maybe I need to be looking somewhere else. Or maybe I need to adjust some of the things that I find attractive. And that's hard to do. But if there are similar characteristics in the guys that you're dating, or the women that you're dating, guys, take a look at that, and what are the commonalities? Are there any signals, or are there any signs that early on that say, this is that, it's going to lead to that characteristic, and I need to move away from that. So there's a lot of things, but that's where practice comes in. That's the practice. The old joke that my grandfather used to tell me is talking about performers wanting to get to Carnegie Hall, and he says, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And he says, practice, practice, practice. And so that's a perfect example of practice. So anyway, we're at the end of the hour here, and I hope this has been beneficial for you. I'm enjoying this conversation tonight. We've had quite a few viewers on tonight, several more than we've had in the past. at least this late in the conversation. So I hope it was beneficial for you. If you need additional help or resources, check out my book, Dating Backward, A Practical Guide to Dating and Finding Your Soulmate. It's a good practical book about dating and creating your must-have list and your deal-breaker list, and talks about conversations to have and when. It talks about emotional handicap, it's just a well-rounded book. I also mentioned The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Get that book if you haven't read it. It's an awesome book, and it will help help you further define what you're looking for in your next relationship. And thank you, Suzanne. I appreciate that. Hey, Mark, thanks for joining in. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate it. And I hope you all have a great week. And I will see you next Monday at 6 for another episode of Monday Mastery, live at 5. I love you guys. Have a great and blessed week.